The Knights Templar are remembered as warriors and mystics, guardians of secrets, defenders of the Holy Land. But their story did not begin in the age of Crusades. It began 1,000 years earlier, when a small brotherhood in Jerusalem forged the first vows of obedience and faith. Around the year 30 AD, a movement took shape among the followers of Jesus of Nazareth. They called their path simply the Way. Their leader in Jerusalem was James, the brother of Jesus, a man known for his austerity, who ruled the early church with the discipline of a monastic order. The group lived communally, rejecting wealth and private ownership. They followed Jewish law in its strictest form, eating only pure foods, washing before prayer, and devoting their lives to study and service. Their rule was close to that of the Essenes, an ascetic sect who believed that purity of body and soul would prepare the world for divine renewal. This brotherhood saw itself as the true continuation of Israel's covenant, a family of the faithful, bound not by blood, but by discipline. To them, salvation was achieved through obedience, community, and constant vigilance against sin. Among the followers of Jesus was another man, Saul of Tarsus, later known as Paul. Educated in Greek philosophy and a citizen of Rome, he carried the new faith far beyond Jerusalem. As he traveled across the empire, Paul asked a question that would reshape the faith. Must the law of Moses bind all who believe in Christ? His answer was revolutionary, that faith alone was sufficient. The law, he argued, had been fulfilled. The Spirit had replaced the letter. The apostles in Jerusalem resisted this change. For them, Paul's teaching weakened the moral discipline that kept the community pure. Where James built a narrow gate, Paul opened a wide road. From this conflict came two branches of early Christianity, one rooted in obedience and ritual, the other in universal belief. Paul's version spread quickly through the cities of the Mediterranean. His letters, copied and shared, became the backbone of a new global faith. The Jerusalem church remained small, devoted to the old ways and to the temple that still dominated the city's skyline. In the year 70, rebellion broke out against Rome. The empire crushed the revolt with merciless force. The temple, the center of Jewish and early Christian worship, was burned to the ground. With its destruction, the Jerusalem Brotherhood lost its home and its authority. Many were killed. Others fled into the deserts of Judea and Syria, yet their discipline survived. Hermits and monks carried the pattern of their life, poverty, obedience, and service, into the wilderness. These scattered communities became the seed of monasticism. From them grew a tradition that would later give birth to the military monks of the Middle Ages. Out of the ashes of Jerusalem, a new form of faith would rise, one that would soon shape the destiny of empires. 3 centuries after the fall of Jerusalem, the Roman world was still the axis of civilization, but the empire was fracturing. In its heart, a new emperor, Constantine, saw the Christian faith not as a sect but as a force that could unify a weary realm. Before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge in 312 AD, Constantine claimed to have seen a vision in the sky, a cross of light and the words, "By this sign, conquer." He ordered his legions to fight under that emblem. Victory followed, and with it came the transformation of a persecuted faith into the religion of an empire. In 313, the Edict of Milan granted freedom of worship. The church, once hunted, became protected by imperial law. Within a generation, bishops held political influence, churches replaced temples, and the cross became the imperial standard. Unity came at a price. Disputes over doctrine erupted. Was Christ divine, human, or both? To end the turmoil, Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. There, more than 300 bishops forged a creed that defined orthodoxy and condemned dissent as heresy. A new capital, Constantinople, was founded on the Bosphorus. It was a Christian city at the meeting point of East and West. From its palaces and cathedrals, the empire ruled for another 1,000 years, preserving learning and faith as the Old West declined. By the 5th century, Rome itself had fallen to barbarian invasions. The Western Empire collapsed, but the Church endured. In monasteries across Italy, Gaul and Britain, monks copied manuscripts and kept alive the discipline that had begun in the deserts of Judea. Their vows echoed those of the ancient brotherhood: poverty, obedience, and prayer. From these houses of silence came the missionaries who would re-Christianize Europe. In the year 800, the Frankish king Charlemagne was crowned Emperor of the Romans. He built schools, codified law, and declared the sword a servant of faith. His empire became the foundation of medieval Christendom. Charlemagne's reign united much of Western Europe, but his death divided it once more. As his heirs fought, a new power rose in the south, swift, organized, and guided by a single revelation. In 610 AD, Muhammad ibn Abdullah began to preach in Mecca. He proclaimed that God is one and that idolatry must end. His message, recorded in the Quran, called men to faith, charity, and justice. Within a generation, Islam had united the tribes of Arabia. By 638 AD, Muslim forces captured Jerusalem, then Syria and Egypt. Under the Caliph Omar ibn al-Khattab, the city was treated with unusual restraint. The Christian patriarch was spared, and pilgrims were still allowed to visit the Holy Sepulchre. A new shrine rose on the Temple Mount, honoring the place from which Muslims believe the Prophet ascended to heaven. The city, sacred to all three faiths, became the pivot of world history. For the next 3 centuries, the Islamic world led the world in science, philosophy, and trade. Yet for Christian pilgrims, the road to Jerusalem was never entirely safe. Shifting dynasties, raiders, and religious zeal made the journey perilous. Reports of robbery, ransom, and desecration spread across Europe, fueling resentment and fear. Despite rivalry, commerce connected the two worlds. Goods, ideas, and technologies crossed the sea even as faiths collided. The balance between coexistence and conflict would not last. In the 11th century, the Seljuk Turks seized control of the Holy Land. Their conquest ended the tolerance of earlier caliphs. Christian pilgrims were attacked, churches destroyed, and the Byzantine Empire, unable to defend the sacred places, appealed for help. That appeal reached Rome in 1095. The Pope's response would unleash the most dramatic chapter in the history of faith and war. In 1095, AD, Pope Urban II answered Byzantium's plea for aid. At Clermont, he urged the warriors of Europe to march east, to rescue their brothers, and to reclaim Jerusalem, the city of Christ. His words ignited all of Europe. Tens of thousands responded. For knights it was a holy duty, for peasants a chance for salvation. They sewed the cross upon their cloaks and took the road to the east. The First Crusade was a vast migration. Armies converged on Constantinople before crossing into Asia Minor. The journey was brutal. Disease, famine, and conflict followed them every step. Against the odds, the Crusaders captured Antioch in 1098. Months later, they marched south, driven by faith and hunger. On 15 July 1099, after 4 years of hardship, the Crusaders stormed Jerusalem. The city that had been the goal of pilgrims for 1,000 years was taken in blood. Chronicles wrote that streets ran red for a day and a night. The conquest established the Latin kingdom of Jerusalem. But the victory brought new burdens. Isolated among hostile powers, the kingdom had few defenders and endless pilgrims to protect. The roads from the ports to the holy city were dangerous. Pilgrims were robbed or killed before reaching the shrines. Out of this peril, a new idea took shape: to combine the vows of the monk with the courage of the knight. 9 men offered to dedicate their lives to the defense of pilgrims. They took no pay, owned no land, and swore to poverty, chastity, and obedience. The king lodged them in a wing of the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount. Believed to stand on the ruins of Solomon's temple, they called themselves the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. From the brotherhood of the way to the monks of the desert, their rule had returned in armor. With the support of the Cistercian reformer Bernard of Clairvaux, The order received papal recognition in 1129. Their banner was black and white, symbol of the world divided between light and darkness.